It is just as important to cite your genealogy sources correctly as it is to cite them at all. On today's Ancestral Findings podcast, I'll show you what can happen if you're careless with your sources. One of the most important parts of genealogy is citing your sources. Doing good genealogy research means making it something others can trust and follow. Sources allow other researchers to do this and use your research with confidence. Good sources also allow you the confidence of knowing your research is as correct as it can be with your current information. Using source citing shows good genealogical scholarship and shows you to be a serious researcher and not just a casual hobbyist. Citing sources is also required if you are submitting any of your work to genealogical journals. As you can see, you must cite your sources to be looked upon as a good genealogist. However, you also have to be careful in citing your sources. Make sure they are accurate and attached to the correct facts. Here are some of the dangers of being careless in your source citing in your genealogical research. You may get the wrong source attached to the wrong fact. Be careful when citing your sources, especially on genealogy family tree software programs. It can be easy to accidentally put a source on the wrong fact. This not only makes your work look sloppy and unprofessional to other researchers, it can be confusing for you when you look at your research later. If you look up a source to confirm a fact as you go further back on that family line, you won't be able to connect the two, resulting in you being unaware of where you actually got the fact you cited. Anyone using your work as a source for their own research will come across the same problem, and that particular fact, or even all of the work you did on that line, will become useless to them. It can also lead to embarrassment if your research gets published in a genealogical journal and someone notices a citation and the fact they don't match each other. You may not be able to understand your citation later. There is a proper way to cite genealogical sources. You usually cite the entire source, including the name of the publication, the author, the repository, and the date you accessed it, the first time you use it. Subsequent times the source is used, it can be abbreviated. But if you don't cite it in full and accurately the first time, you may not understand it or your abbreviations later. Don't think you won't ever need to check a source again. The more work you do on a family line, the more likely you are to need to use your sources to reconfirm information. If you have recorded your sources in any way you can't understand them later, they will be useless to you. It is well worth it to invest in a book on how to properly cite genealogical sources for this very purpose. Evidence Explained, Citing History Sources from Artifacts to Cyberspace by Elizabeth Schoen Mills is considered the definitive publication on the subject. You can get people and family lines confused with each other. Many families reuse names again and again over the generations. There are also surnames that are quite common, and if you have different family lines in the same area with the same surname, it can get confusing keeping people straight. Making sure your source citations are accurate can keep people straight for you. If you don't cite sources, or cite them incorrectly or illegibly, you can easily get people confused. You might put someone in the wrong generation, or mix up one line of your family with another that uses similar names and is in a similar location. Good, careful source citation minimizes these risks and ensures you have an accurate family tree where everyone is where they are supposed to be. It may seem like a hassle to write or type your sources for every genealogical fact you include in your family tree, but it's worth it. It is also worth it to take the time to do it correctly. Don't be careless with your genealogical source citation, and you can be relatively sure you've got an accurate family tree that will stand up to the scrutiny of even the most diligent genealogy scholars. Did your ancestor work for the railroad? If so, you'll want to explore railroad records to find out more about them on the next episode of the Ancestral Findings podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time on the Ancestral Findings podcast. And for further info, you can visit us at ancestralfindings.com. Copyright by Ancestral Findings, all rights reserved.